difference. I think there's a difference because we can have a better day if we choose to. I want to give a little bit of perspective of where I'm coming from. As I look at today in 2010, I come from it. I definitely come from a historical lens. I'm very influenced by the founding era, and I want to share with you briefly about what I've learned about studying that period. I will tell you that when you look at our Declaration of Independence, it's incredible. I mean, this is a one-page document, the Declaration of Independence. It's one page on parchment, you know, and you think about the simplicity, the beauty, and the clarity in that document. You know, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Now, looking at it from 2010, you say, of course, you know, but from 1776, that was a radical idea. That was a radical idea, the thought that we could live free. We, the people, that we could live free. That was an era where there was a belief that you had to have a king or a queen. You needed a monarchy, and you needed an aristocracy and a court. And we fought a war over that. No radical idea like that just happens. It has to be fought for and defended. And that's what happened over those 7 years with the revolution. We defended that idea. And then you think about the Constitution. And you hear a lot about the Constitution. Even in this day, you hear a lot of folks will talk about one particular thing or another about the Constitution. Here's what I would share with you. Is that overriding all of it, there was an animating principle. The animating principle was that we could live free. And that to ensure that, we set up a government with no one in charge, and we liked it that way. What we did is we set up a series of countervailing forces to prevent the centralization of power. We had a Congress that was checking the President. The President was checking the Congress. The courts was checking the Congress and the President. We had a federal government, and we had a state governments. And by the way, we choose the word state carefully. That wasn't an accident. We chose the word state because we saw sovereignty also residing in the state that was shared with the federal government, and that's why initially you had that confederation. You had the Articles of Confederation. But this was the idea that we would not allow for a centralization of power. Because if that happens, history has shown it, has told us that you'll have tyranny. You'll have tyranny. Because they searched, and our founders had read all the history books and the philosophy books. And where they came down is the fact that the best way to protect our freedoms is to set up ambition counteracted by ambition. And incidentally, we were armed. We had the Second Amendment. We were armed as another deterrent to the state and the federal governments. This was all part of a genius design so that we could live free. I share that with you because I firmly believe that that had a lot to do why we became the richest and the freest country in the history of mankind. In the history of the world, there had been rich countries, and there had been free countries. But never in the history of mankind had there been a country at once so rich and so free. And I believe it's because of a system that maximized freedom. For all our faults, we have a system that is most closely aligned with human nature. And that's why I think it works. Because it allows for individuals to reach up to their God-given potential, even as we care deeply about one another in a framework of families and communities. And you can see this in de Tocqueville. When you read de Tocqueville, the Democracy in America, he writes this in 1820, when the heads of Europe were trying to figure out how this radical experiment was working out. And he explained to them why. He said, because of this system that they have, they care about one another. And when they have a problem, they look to their community. They don't look to the king or the queen or to a central government. It's the idea that we know best right here in Grafton, right here in Rensselaer County. These are where we can find solutions that work for us. I share that with you because I think that's part of how we've gotten off track right now. We're having serious issues in terms of our economy and our deficit and the debt, and I think it's because over time we've evolved to the point now where it's fairly commonplace to believe that if we have a problem, we should look to Washington, D.C. to solve it. Ladies and gentlemen, I will tell you that I don't think that's going to work. There are certain functions and responsibilities that we want in our federal government. But by and large, what we want to do is limit what a federal government does so we can empower localities. Certainly states are going to have a role here. But really where we want the loci of power is here with individuals, families, and communities.